Hello, you lovely people, and welcome back to Sabbatical Stories. I'm your host, Bex Thomas, and I created this podcast to inspire courage and normalise taking a break from your career. If you find these stories valuable, I would love it if you could help by subscribing, liking, and rating the show. It really does mean a lot. Today's episode is for anyone who has ever wondered what life could look like outside of corporate and whether it really is possible to make the leap in running your own business. I'm joined by the brilliant Mandy Millan, who took a break that marked the end of her corporate career and the beginning of her solopreneur journey. Mandy now works with open-minded business owners who are ready to grow beautiful, sustainable brands with more flow and less burnout. This episode is an amazing listen for anyone who is thinking about quitting corporate and going it alone. You won't want to miss Mandy's insights and story.
Deep down, you've tried deep, search wide, enjoy your climb. It's all for you.
Hi Mandy, and welcome to Sabbatical Stories. How are you?
Hi Bex, I'm good, thanks love. I'm excited for our chat.
I know, on the other side of the world. You are where? Central Coast?
Yes, I am on the Central Coast. It's very chilly and I'm sure you're very warm over in France, are you?
Yes, I'm in France. Beautiful here and midsummer, so totally the opposite. So look, as it is exactly that, your story, can you please introduce Mandy to our listeners and give us an insight into your sabbatical story, please?
I'd love to. I am Mandy. I'm a mother of two beautiful young children, Albie and Stella. I'm a proud wife to Scott, and I am a mentor, and I help entrepreneurs build out amazing businesses and brands that really align with them and their aligned clients. And I also head up and lead. I'm the founder of the Reach business community, which brings small businesses together in the Central Coast and also in Sydney. And in terms of my sabbatical story, it happened 15 years ago and it was life-changing for me. I was in big business. Straight out of uni, I went into working for big businesses, running marketing teams, and I just got to a point where I felt completely lost and needed a break. And that break ultimately led me to where I am, where I feel in complete alignment today.
And you mentioned you felt lost. What do you think was the sort of accumulation of that feeling? And was there specifically like one tipping point, or was it an accumulation of lots of things?
That's a really good question. I think it's both. I feel that it was a build-up of feeling not inspired by my work and just sort of moving on a treadmill of life, being a cog in the wheel, and wasn't really finding my true expression as who I was. And I also feel that it was because I wasn't excited or connected or inspired by my work. I felt that I was just really over pushing everything, overworking, long demanding hours, was over gymming. I was sort of numbing to get away from what was lacking in my life. And that's when I knew I had to really take some time out and just rediscover who I am and take a break for my nervous system. Luckily, I did it when I did, because otherwise I think I would have definitely been heading for burnout, which is a common story that I hear from a lot of people.
Yeah, and one of those common reasons for taking a break. Breaks we don't choose them, they happen to us. And I think burnout is one of those instances where it happens to us and it's potentially not a choice. And talking about intentionality, how intentional were you in choosing what you went into? Because for me, there was no intention there at all. I fell into recruitment, and I wonder whether individuals being super intentional around what they want to do actually means that they don't get to this point of bore out or falling out of love with their career.
Yeah, that's a great question. It really is important to be intentional. But looking back at my journey, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And when I look back, it was marketing for me. It was that generalized offering that could appeal to so many. I could apply it to lots of different areas in business, and it was quite creative and it was quite business focused. And so I didn't have that passion for it. You know, there wasn't that love for marketing, and it was something I looking back, I didn't really love it. And coming from a family of entrepreneurs and small business owners, like, and now going full circle, it's made me realize just how important it is to find that. And it's something as a mother actually that I'm saying to my 9-year-old son when he's looking at sports or areas that he's getting into. I'm always saying to him, as long as you can find something that really lights you up, that you really love, that's what's going to be key. Because me feeling lost and stuck where I needed the break was because I wasn't feeling that.
And so what was the why behind the break? Was it to find what did light you up? Like, what were your intentions for the break?
The intentions for the break were to relax and actually just get off that treadmill of doing, busyness, numbing, lost, and just take some time out, just to get some space, to relax, to feel good, to feel healthy, to slow down and actually find some space to connect with what I really want to do.
And talk us through how you did that.
It was a really quick decision to leave, and enough was enough. And there was an opportunity to go with a friend who was leaving to travel around Asia, and said, well, why don't you just do it? Just join in. And it was a really quick decision for me. You know, it was pretty risky. I didn't have support financially. I didn't have, anything, really a big savings fund behind me. And I just went for 6 months and traveled all around East Asia.
Wow. And do you know what? One of the big things that has come out of conversations I've had previously is how important the financial runway is, and how important it is to save for the break and then make sure you've got the runway when you come back.
I know. And I've heard some of your previous guests, and it was interesting because I thought, well, mine is a completely different experience to that. I was full risk, no backup plan, let's go and just trust.
What was the conversation in your head at that period? Because I'm sure there must have been a dialogue going through around the risk and
huge
what ifs.
Yeah, and that's what's given me my biggest learnings today, and what I do and how quickly I can make decisions was because I really started to listen to that internal dialogue, which was, if you don't now, what could be happening in 3 months, 6 months? Like, it's just, when is it going to stop? If not now, when? And how long would that continue for? And I had seen people around me burning out and just looking exhausted. And I just knew I didn't want that to happen to me. So yeah, it was jump in and let's go.
And it's the opportunity cost, isn't it? That dialogue around what if you don't, what's the opportunity cost of not going versus staying?
Yeah. And it's that classic saying, your health is, your wealth. So yeah, there's a financial figure, but really looking at people who are burning out and it just, for me, it was a no-brainer. I was just full dive in, let's go. And I knew I was smart enough to find something, whether it be in that career ladder when I got wherever I ended up. I knew through being a connector and someone who works hard, and I'd be able to find something if I had to, but it led to a completely different path, which is why I'm so grateful that I did it to myself back then.
Somebody once said to me, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that can happen if you go and don't maybe have a financial runway? And if you're a grafter, you'd just turn your hand to anything, right? And you'd make it work for a bit, and you'd go back to, I don't know, jobs you had through uni or like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
First of all, I think what I'd love to understand is, how did the break live up to expectation?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I just want to go back as well, where you're saying what's the worst thing that can happen. I always say this when I'm mentoring people now, and it actually happened for me back then, is, well, what's the best thing that could happen? And actually sit with that. And I knew, well, I could have a completely change of path. I could be really excited in life, and I could be really healthy. Like, imagine that. And it was like, yeah, that was sort of weighing it up. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But it was amazing. I mean, it lived up to all my expectations. There was so many adventures, like, such a big influx of culture. It opened my mind. I was in awe all the time, and just gave me the space to really lean into my creativity, which I feel I lost when I was just sort of part of a big corporation. And the space not only helped my health, but it also helped me tap into creativity and what I could create for myself.
Which was
drum roll, was creating my first business in wellbeing. So I had a complete career change. I went back to the UK and I got around entrepreneurs in my family and just said, I'm not going back to that world. And I decided to become a Pilates teacher, complete change. And I trained in London as a Pilates teacher whilst I was a sales manager for another business in the UK. So I did that for 3 days a week and then became a Pilates teacher, which took me 2 years to train. And then I launched my first Pilates practice where I had my own practice in the UK. And then from there, I sold that business. I moved back to Australia. So I'd had my Australian visa. That's why I sort of took the sabbatical at that time, because I knew I'd got my Australian passport. So I knew, well, I'm not leaving this forever. I can go off, I can do what I want to do, and then I can always come back to Australia. So the journey took me to Asia, back to the UK, set up my first wellbeing business, loved it, started to get too cold and over the English winters after 4 years, met my husband there, who's from the same area, and then brought him back with me on my Australian passport. And then I opened my Pilates practice in Sydney, and then I scaled that business into a corporate wellbeing business, which I ran for 8 years, which is where you and I met a long time ago. And from there, I then took some time out to have my children and came back into the workforce. And so for the past 5 years, I've been mentoring small businesses, particularly in the wellbeing space. So I've gone full circle using my experience of big business, small business, my own businesses, and that whole journey.
Wow, what a journey. And what a shift, right?
What a shift.
Was it on the break that you made the decision that you're not going back?
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah. So just to actually emphasize a little bit more on that, because I find this is the important part for a lot of people. I, looking back, knew internally that that's what I probably wanted to do. But it wasn't until I then got back to the UK and started to soundboard with the right people who helped me and gave me the nudge to go on my own. Because I think that's the important part. People will think, oh, I had the break and then I just knew. Well, I think you can know internally, but you do need to get around the right people and talk it through. And then you're like, yes, I can do this.
And you also mentioned that you were working part-time.
Yeah.
And I think that's also really important to highlight, because I think one of the myths is that you go on a break, suddenly you have this enlightening moment of, oh, this is what I was put on the world to do. You go back, you do it happens overnight. And I think that point is so important, because it's actually that transition part, and it's the part where actually you're making the dream become a reality, but you can't do that on thin air. You've got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
I think that's a super important part to really highlight. How long did you do that for whilst you were building this business in the background?
It's a great point, and everyone has a different journey. Some people will have payouts, like you say, from their career, or they'll have big savings, and it's very different for them, and they might be able to get back into another career and take a break. But for me, it was a different journey. For me personally, I was working as a sales manager for 2 years, working 3 days a week whilst I was training as a Pilates teacher. And so whilst I was training as a Pilates teacher, I'd be training all weekend in London, and then I'd be teaching of an evening whilst I was a sales manager. So it really taught me that grit and determination of the two. And then once I was ready to launch my business, I was full impact into that. And I think that's, everyone, like you say, has different ways of balancing it out, whether you're in a full-time career, if you've got a side hustle and you're building something else. Like, there's no set way. Everyone's different.
And everybody has different considerations. We have financial considerations, so it is about balancing that. And as you say, everybody's is so different that there are some hints, tips, pieces of advice, guidelines, but actually, no one blueprint is right for everybody. And why Pilates and wellness? What was it that sparked that idea?
Well, for me, it was, as I mentioned earlier, I reached a point of nearly burning out. And those critical factors in my health was, long, demanding office hours on my back. So I had a lot of back pain, and Pilates was great, yoga was great. So whilst I was away on this sabbatical, I was going to some mega studios, just stunning, in Asia, which I'm sure you've been to, that are just incredible. And I was like, wow, this is just paradise on earth. Like, people should always feel like this, not just when they visit Thailand or traveling on retreat. It just resonated with me. I just thought, man, it could not be more different like life when you're practicing Pilates and breath work and yoga, and then this work life. Like, they're just so different. And I needed that change, and it made such a shift on my health that I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow, I wanted to do it for my own body, for my own mental health. And then I just thought, well, being a connector, someone who's great with people and loving being around people, why can't I bring that to my world, basically?
Yeah, share it with the world. Was there one particular story or moment from the break that you remember that really sort of instilled that passion or drive to go back and build your own business?
I don't think there was one moment. I think for me personally, as I said, I grew up in a household of entrepreneurs, so I've always had that taste and hunger for small business and doing something myself. That's definitely something that's been instilled in me. But I think the break just allowed me to really, journal, contemplate what it was that I really valued in life. And it was constantly coming through that it was health and supporting people and being of service at a deeper level, rather than being, part of a clog in the wheel. So it gave me the space to really recognize that and know that was the way to go.
And so fast forward to meeting your husband, selling the business, moving back to Oz. We talk a lot on this podcast around identity and how taking the break and having that time to reflect really shifts people's identities. How do you think your identity has shifted over the past 15 years, and what part did the break play in that?
I feel my identity now is very authentic, and there is no masks in who I am. The way I show up online, the way I lead my local community, the way I help businesses. And I feel back before I went on the break, I was wearing a mask. I was trying to pretend to be a certain way and keep up and be someone I wasn't. So it's the identity for me. What landed straight away when you said that was that the mask is completely removed. I am who I am, and it's full authenticity now.
That's an amazing analogy. And is the break responsible for taking that mask off?
Yeah.
Or are we responsible for taking that mask off? Just we've given ourselves and gifted ourselves.
Well, that's it. I think as long as we have the awareness now, and this might land with someone, is if you are wearing a mask, that analogy, if you're people pleasing and you're trying to be someone that you're not, and you're trying to keep up with your managers, and you're doing too much in your life and you're burning out, and it's like, if you can remove that mask yourself and have that awareness, you don't necessarily need a big break. But for me, I needed that full reset to really take that on.
You mentioned that your sabbatical, your break really has helped you, or there are lessons that you've taken with you throughout the last 15 years, and one of them being decision making. What other lessons or parts of that break have you really taken through the last 15 years and journey?
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many. I'm going to try and narrow them down to the main lessons. I'll speak about that one, like you said. I think the fact that I made the decision to go very quickly has set a real foundation in my life now, like particularly even in business. Like, if I have an idea, I can execute very, very quickly. And I think that was the foundation of it. It enabled me to take risks, believe in myself, know that I can do anything, and then go from there and create businesses, and that break and being able to do that and believe in myself, that break was good for me, was a starting point. I feel that one of the big ones that always comes through for me is to always choose courage over comfort. I think a lot of people are sort of in that fear where they, like you said, have I got the finances? What will happen? I've got to have this certainty. It's just to lean into that trust a bit more, because every time I've noticed from businesses I've set up, when I've emigrated like multiple times now, when I've taken that sabbatical at the start, when I've numerous occasions, which really started from there, every time I lean into courage over comfort, that's where the magic happens every time. So that's one of the big lessons for me. The big one, the lesson, is that internal voice, which I know and I hear because I have a lot of people I'm working with now as well that are coming out of corporate or big businesses and are looking to build their own brand, they've heard that internal voice a lot, that those whispers that are saying to them, I'm not being lit up in my life, I'm feeling really dragged down, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm not excited by what I do, I haven't really created a life that feels good to me. And I think that internal voice happened for me just before my break, and then I took that big break, and then now I honor that internal voice. That's my intuition. I listen to that constantly, and it got louder and louder the more I took that break, because I could sit in silence, I could hear what was coming through. And I think people are so busy and they're so push that they're filling themselves up, that they're not finding the space to listen to that internal voice, and that internal voice will ultimately always guide you to the right place.
I 100% agree, and I think it's fascinating to watch around that consuming of noise. The amazing humans that I work with, a lot of the time it's that there's just not the space given to silence. Like, the consuming of the noise is unreal, whether that's that they've got 5 minutes, so I need to, I'm walking to the shops, I'm going to listen to a podcast, or it's the constant doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that absolute, there is not 1 minute where there is that allowing of silence in. Going to the gym, I'm going to the gym, so I'm going to listen to a podcast, or I'm going running, so I'm going to put music on, or I'm doing the cooking and I'm going to watch a webinar or catch up with work, or at the same time. And it's almost this like over multitasking, and just this constant consuming of information, which also then I find fascinating, that a lot of the time, because there's so much being consumed, where does it go? Like, it doesn't even, I don't think, half the time land. I don't think it lands and then gets executed on and implemented. It's just this noise.
Yeah, and it's addiction, in a sense, that people are addicted to just filling up that space. And like you say, like, not discounting the power of listening to a podcast in the gym. Like, I do that hands up, right? And I think people have certain times where you're saying, I love listening to tunes, when I'm walking, and I get that. But what you're saying is, if you're going to schedule that in and do that on the regular, you also need to quieten down and actually prioritize the quietness as well.
And schedule in the silence.
Yes, yeah, and have that time.
If it doesn't come naturally to you.
Yeah, if it doesn't. And that's why, even coming back to this with people having this big break, some people get to a point like I did where I just needed a mega break because it was just too much going on. Whereas if I had the awareness back then, 15 years ago, which I have now, and I plan my own day, I schedule my own day. I have certain times when I work, when I don't, when I have quiet, when I have space. But back then I didn't. But if I had the awareness back then, or someone listening now, you might not need this extensive break. But if you have the awareness, like you said, and you can schedule in time where it is quiet, and you can have reflection time, and you can listen to what's going on inside, there's a lot of internal guidance that people are missing.
Yeah. And also, I think scheduling in or leaning into activities that don't necessarily need you to consume noise or information. So I know you surf a lot, but you probably can't surf and consume information at the same time.
No.
Can you? No? Right. So actually you're with that silence whilst doing an activity. So it's also about lacing in, maybe, or leaning into things that can give you that space and that silence.
Yeah, because you would know as a recruiter, same with me when I facilitate, networking events for my small businesses, when you're having a conversation with someone who is not present and is full of all this noise, you know that the conversation isn't landing and they're not present. And that's the same when I facilitate conversations. Let someone speak, listen to what they're saying, and then respond. It's very different to people that are just talking at each other and just full of all this noise.
Yeah, absolutely. In your capacity now as a mentor and business coach, obviously a lot of the listeners have either taken breaks and are coming back and potentially wanting to build something their own, or do something very different, or maybe there are people on a break that have that little seed planted or thought that they're like, I don't want to go back to what was. What would your advice be to those that potentially do want to go out on their own?
I would say to them to really, really listen to what they love doing, what lights them up, where do they love to play in life. And once they get that clear and they know, yeah, these are my strengths, this is what I love to do, particularly those that want to be of service, like they're my people that are, that want to get into well-being, that want to help people, or even in a creative pursuit. Once you have that, if you have a real yearning to do that for yourself, I honestly, hand on heart, could not think of a better time with what's available to you, and just know that anything is possible, that you can lean into your stories, your passions, your power. Like, people need people, particularly with the way that the world is going with AI coming in, is human beings need good human beings to help them. So this is a really great time to listen to that internal voice, honor it. You only have one life, and to go make it happen. It's a lot easier than you think.
And so that's all great. I come back, I listen to that internal voice. I'm like, yes, this is what I love doing. Now what?
Now what? Work with someone like me. And I will help you strategize. I will help you work out your offering, work out your marketing strategy, build out your brand, and help you align with your ideal clients. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. The key is, which was another big part of my journey, is then working with your mindset. I'm an NLP coach. I help people. You were talking about limiting beliefs earlier. That is a real thing in terms of belief systems that are there when we break it down in our subconscious mind, and also our inner critic. Like, that was one of the big players for me when I was early in business. Someone, like you say, might come back and go, yeah, great, I've got this internal calling and now I'm going to go set up a business. It's just that easy. But you do need to get around people. Like I said to you when I first got back to the UK, you need to get around people that are going to help you break free out of that comfort zone, which is that inner critic that's going to say to you over and over again, well, no, you're not good enough. You need to stay in big business. You won't be able to set up your own business. How will you do that? You constantly have that chatter. And so that's where you've got to get around the right people to say, no, you can do it. Because I have seen such a mixed array of entrepreneurs that I've worked with in the past 5 years. Currently, I've got 6 60-year-olds, 60 plus, who have left their long-term careers and are now stepping into well-being, using their wisdom, using their stories, everything they've been through. It's incredible. So you don't have to be a certain point in life. You don't have to have certain skills. Your stories and who you are and what you've done will be enough to really get you there.
And they will, but I think when you say it's not rocket science, it's not to you, because that's your bag, that's your strength, that's all of your background put together.
Yes.
To the Joe Blog on the street, it is. And I think, having gone through that really messy journey myself, absolutely the one piece of advice that I would give is hire somebody who knows how to do it, and hire somebody who you can partner with and that can guide you. It's having the experts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Professional supports people don't become professional supports people on their own. They have a team of people around them that cater for all different aspects. And I think it's so important that if you're on a break or you're coming back from a break and you have this yearning, it's then like, okay, find somebody who can help you execute it, that is the professional.
Yeah, and who's actually walked the path and been through all of the experiences. Because also having someone who really cares and genuinely wants to support you and see you win, you're going to have numerous wobbles, that cringe hangover when you first start stepping into the light, when you're building a brand, when you're building a business. Like, there's a lot of internal dialogue that's going to be against you. But the more you can have people supporting you and getting around you and building you up, the easier it becomes. And then it just becomes second nature. But when you first start, it's really daunting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's like you say, it's the strategies, it's setting it out. But there's so many tools now as well that we can leverage off. So it's a really, really good time.
And there are so many. And I think, again, that sometimes can be a blessing and a curse, right? Because the choice is overwhelming. And again, from experience, it's that whole procrastination and, oh, well, I'll just find the perfect tool. It's like, just get it done. Where I think that's where certainly for me, a business coach has been absolutely integral around actually advising on tools, on what I need at what point in my business, and then actually almost taking some of that noise away. It's sometimes taking that noise away and not taking the choice away, but taking that noise away, I think is so important.
Yeah, definitely. That's, half my battle, or I would say joy in working with clients, is to also rein them in. And, entrepreneurs, we have a million ideas and, like you say, different options. And it's about actually saying, calm down and let's focus. And this is going to be the next step. It's that simple.
And that's the bit that's really hard to do on your own. Is all this blue sky thinking and amazing ideas, and then reining it into a strategy is super hard if you're not cut from that cloth, or you're not from that background and just are all the ideas person.
I know, and there are a million, and I love it. I'm like, I love all of these ideas, but this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, tell me what to do. Okay, brilliant.
Have you taken a break since you're 15 years? Like, obviously you've had parental leave, but actually a sabbatical or a career break?
No, but I'm working on a dream at the moment, which is with myself, and my husband has his own business as well, and we have a dream to buy a camper van and travel around Australia with our young children. So that's the dream. In the next 2 years, watch this space. That's what I'm planning to do, and I'll be mentoring whilst I'm traveling around Australia, and have leaders running my Reach business community sessions as well.
Amazing. For a period of time? How long?
I'd love to say a year, but I don't know if that's realistic with the way that my business community is growing, but we'll see. My son is obsessed with Western Australia and fishing and the adventure over there, and I'd love to give it a good stint, maybe, at least 6 months to get all around and see all the great pockets.
Amazing. What a dream to have.
Watch this space.
Before we wrap, is there anything that the listeners would really benefit from?
Just, sharing again the importance of taking a break for everyone, and whether that break is as long, I'm so grateful that I got to take such an extensive break, which led me into living a life by design, a bit like you now, Bex. If anything, is just to remember that if you can't take the long breaks, is to schedule in the breaks with what you do have, and what works for you. Just think breaks are key in life. Like we were saying before, if you're just filling up with doing and this busyness, wearing this busyness badge with pride, just remember what damage that could potentially be doing to you.
And so we always close this podcast asking guests what their top 3 tips would be for individuals who are either thinking about taking a break or currently on one, or maybe having just returned from one. What would be your top 3 tips, Mandy?
So my top 3 tips would be to, as I mentioned before, choose courage over comfort. So always have a think about that before making a decision when you're away. If you're making your next move in life, always choose courage over comfort.
Actually makes me feel a bit vommy, like, even just thinking about it. When you're like, so it's such a good one. I love it.
And it actually reflects, because I
vommy in a good way. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but every time, and I learned to surf 3 years ago in my 40s, and being British.
I have such amazing respect for you.
And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and it was the best thing I've ever done. So again, courage over comfort. The other one is to always honor that internal voice and that intuition, because that will never steer you wrong. So that's my other one. And the other one, the last learnings, our tip would be to create space regularly, because creating space, not only will that lead to supporting your health and your well-being, but also that creativity. Like, creativity is a word that just keeps coming through for me at the moment, and it's so important for us to really lean into that. And to get creativity, you've got to have space.
And I think that's a tip for anybody thinking about going on a break and creating that space, to be creative in what they want that break to look like, feel like, making space whilst you're on the break. Because I think a lot of people almost take their doing into the break, and it's like actually creating that space. And then also for me, where the magic happens is the integration of the break back into whatever is next. And that's where space is absolutely essential. Love it. Great 3 top tips. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us, Mandy. It's been wonderful to catch up and lovely to hear your sabbatical story.
It's been great. Thank you. Thanks, Beck. Take care.
matters into your own hands. You won't believe that you're making headway, yeah, and plan.
Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to be here. A massive thanks to Mandy for sharing her journey. Her story is such a powerful reminder that taking a break can create the space you need to step into something that feels so much more aligned and joyful. If today's episode resonated and you'd like to connect with Mandy, I'll put all of the links in the show notes below. A special thanks to Auntie B at the Flaxen, my incredible, patient and talented producer. And we're also joined this season by Nikki from the Flaxen, who is working her magic on all things social media management. And of course, a massive shout out to the amazing Joe Cook, whose soulful vocals we're lucky enough to feature throughout the show. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could like and rate the show. And if you really want to make my day, please do leave a positive comment too. If you know somebody who would love this conversation, do send it their way. Your support means the world, and helping get these stories out to whoever needs to hear them is amazing. Do you have a sabbatical story to share? Or maybe you know someone whose journey would inspire others? Do let us know. You can get in touch via Sabbatical Stories Podcast on Instagram or message me directly on LinkedIn. I'm Bex Thomas. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep dreaming big, and remember, your sabbatical story is waiting to be written.
You try, dig deep, search wide.